she is, I'm going to find her. I'm going to hurt her. And then I'm going to kill you right in front of her.
So in Mission Impossible 3, you have Ethan Hunt once again returning and is being forced back into active duty and capturing an arms dealer played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And you also have a cast that includes the return of Ving Rhames from the previous movie, Michelle Monaghan is in here, Billy Crudup, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, Kerry Russell, Maggie Q, Lawrence Fishburne. They're all involved in this movie. And this is a notable movie in the history of the Mission Impossible franchise, not just because of the fact that it's directed by J.J. Abrams, who is coming into this not too long after his success with Alias and Lost, and turning him into a hot commodity in Hollywood to make his directorial debut. He makes his feature directorial debut on this movie. He also wrote the script for this with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, who of course he worked with on Lost. But this is the first Mission Impossible movie since the beginning of the first film where Ethan Hunt is working with a group. And that was always the point of the original Mission Impossible movies in general, series in general. You know, it's not just the main one person on full right in front of your face is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to think of it without turning off the camera. But you know, this is more of an ensemble movie than the other movies were. Not quite where the movies would eventually go from here once Brad Bird took over with Ghost Protocol following this, but it's a major step in the right direction, and it really sets the tone for where the Mission Impossible franchise goes from here. Because after this movie, every movie that came out after this was either really good or great. Like Ghost Protocol was great, Rogue Nation was surprisingly better than the original Ghost Protocol was. Then Fallout came out, and that really upped the ante in general. And then we just had recently Dead Reckoning, which, truth be told, is not a very good movie. Like, I was really disappointed when I saw that film. Still a lot of cool stuff in it, though, but it's not a bad movie in general, but definitely a major step down compared to the other movies that came before it, especially considering that they were on this little bit of an uphill swing with the movies after this movie came out. But Mission Impossible 3 is the movie that helped to open that door in general, and we get a really impressive film overall with impressive action, impressive stunt work, impressive overall acting overall. Tom Cruise, I think, is very good in the film, so is Philip Seymour Hoffman, playing the bad guy in here. And you could definitely see where the direction of the series is going from here. And it worked out in the film's favor in the long run, because now everyone can't wait to see the new Mission Impossible movie because of what the work that Tom Cruise puts into this, with all the stunt work he does here. But this is a nice return to form for what the Mission Impossible franchise is all about. It's not just about Ethan Hunt. It's about everybody involved and how they get involved in putting this plan together. And I think this movie does a great job of emphasizing the team aspect here that would later be perfected in the films to come afterwards. I think this is a perfect step in the right direction for this series. And yeah, looking at the other movies that have come out since then, this is definitely maybe lower on the list. But then again, that's because most of these movies have gotten better and better and better with each passing film. This is a really good movie, man. I can't recommend this one enough. This is one I think actually gets kind of an underrated approach, honestly, the more I think about it, because the film came out. It was a big hit, but it wasn't like a gigantic hit compared to the second movie. But it was a movie that took the series in the right direction overall, and I think that's what Paramount took from it when they moved the series forward with Ghost Protocol, and look at what transpired after that. But yeah, this is a movie that I think definitely deserves a lot more attention. Mission Impossible 3, a really good film, definitely the building blocks for what the series would eventually become later on down the road. So that's the movie that everybody was going to go see that weekend. Now let's see the movies that they were trying to force out there as counter-programming and kind of fail miserably at it. Let's start with the second film we have on this list, which is An American Haunting.
Something happened in this house to this girl that would become the most documented haunting in American history. It has never been explained. Now you know the truth. An American Haunting, rated PG-13, now playing.
From the director of Dungeons & Dragons. Not the good Dungeons & Dragons movie we got recently. No. I'm talking about the 2000 Dungeons & Dragons movie. That should be your first warning sign right there. But the film is based off the novel of The Bell Witch, An American Haunting, and the events are loosely based on the legend of the Bell Witch, which switches from the 21st century to the 19th, and features a subplot about a recently divorced mother whose daughter is going through something like the same experience as Bessie Bell, who is, of course, the inspiration in the Bell Witch storyline. And, yeah, this film really wasn't all that great in general, but because it was such a low-budgeted film, because it didn't have the traction that everyone was kind of expecting from it, plus it was also, this was back when Lionsgate was still, Lionsgate was still that independent company as a whole, the film did become a profitable success overall, so it made its money back regardless, but most people who went to see this movie only saw it on the Friday that came out because it's date night, and hey, we can't get into Mission Impossible 3, so let's go into An American Haunting instead. And then they completely forgot about it afterwards. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened with this movie in general. And really, when you look at it, you can't really see why that wouldn't be the case at all. Because, yeah, the film itself is not that great overall. Yeah, I'd avoid this one like the plague. So, yeah, skip this one, American Haunting. Not much more to say about that one. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Hoot.
95 weeks on the bestseller list.
We're bulldozing today.
What about them owls? Over 1 million copies sold.
They don't care about little birds, even if they are endangered.
Just get that site clear!
And on May 5th,
We gotta stop this construction once and for all.
the unforgettable story
Why do you want to get mixed up in all this?
comes to life.
Somebody's gotta stick up for them.
Hoot.
There's nothing to stop them from bulldozing from one coast to another, except for us.
Rated PG, featuring music by Jimmy Buffett.
And then that bulldozer runs over all those kids, and the movie is over. I mean, that's pretty much that's what would make this movie much more interesting. But Hoot is, of course, based off the classic children's book of the same name. And in this movie, you have a group of children trying to save a burrowing owl habitat from destruction. Its habitat is located on the intended construction site of a pancake house, which this town in this movie is so excited for pancakes that when you watch this movie, take a drink on how many times everybody in this town can't wait to have their pancakes. You'll be drunk by the end of this movie. The developer of the project intends to proceed regardless of the environmental damage it will cause. Hoot features live burrowing owls and music by Jimmy Buffett. Buffett is also listed as a co-producer and stars as the science teacher in the movie. The cast also includes such notable names as Luke Wilson, Logan Lerman from the Maze Runner, or Percy Jackson. I think it was Percy Jackson. Yeah, Percy Jackson, from Percy Jackson and the Olympians. You've seen him more recently in stuff like Noah and Fury. And I think he was in Oppenheimer, too, because no, he wasn't in Oppenheimer, but he was in Bullet Train, though. I was saying that because apparently everybody that were kids in the 2000s were in Oppenheimer, when you really look at it. Josh Peck was in there, but I digress. But Brie Larson, who went on to become an Academy Award winner, and of course Captain Marvel's in this as well as one of the kids. Tim Blake Nelson, Neil Flynn from Scrubs, Robert Wagner, Clark Gregg, of course Agent Coulson, Jessica Caulfield. So there is a notable cast involved in the film. The movie itself, it's your pretty substandard kids fare in general here. Even if you never read the books that this was based off of, the movie's not that great overall. It's nothing bad about it per se. It's just kind of a boring movie. Like I said, they're trying to prevent this. They're trying to save this owl habitat from somebody who wants to build a pancake house. Like, if that's the main bad guy's big evil plan overall is to build a pancake house, I'm sure there's other places in this little town where you could build this freaking pancake house. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I don't know. This movie's pretty stupid to me. Like, it's not a bad movie, but it is kind of a film that's just kind of like, I didn't get anything out of it per se. So yeah, hard pass on Hoot. So, was there any other movies besides Mission Impossible 3 that were good that came out this weekend? Well, this last movie was Terry Zwigoff's follow-up to Bad Santa, and that is Art School Confidential.
Why are you laughing, boy? Holy, still trying anything.
This isn't what you think. Humans are a bunch of jerks. I hope the plague wipes out the whole species.
How about it, dude? You got any deep, dark secrets we should know about? Art School Confidential.
Hit the juice.
So in this movie, you have Max Minghella playing Jerome, a kid from the suburbs who loves to draw. He goes to New York City Strathmore College for his freshman year as a drawing major. Competition and petty jealousy consumes faculty and students with an end-of-first semester Best Student Award held out at Grand Plum. Worse, a stranger is on the loose, killing people on or next to campus. The idealistic Jerome falls in love with Audrey, played by Sophia Myles, a student who models for life drawing classes and who responds to her sweetness. But he has a rival, the clean-cut, manly Jonah, and a first-year drawing student whose primitive works draw raves and Audrey's attention. As citizens of Seas to Code everything, Jerome is desperate to win. The movie is all over the place, I'm not going to lie, but this is Terry Zwigoff and Danny Kloves working together for the first time since Ghost World, and as chaotic as the movie gets overall, that's kind of the fun factor of the film in general here. Like, the movie goes to insane levels at times, and it has this appeal that, you know, what makes Terry Zwigoff's movie so great overall. You know, he's the guy that did Bad Santa, Ghost World, Crumb, these weird movies in general that just find a way to suck you in because of how insane and over the top these movies get. And here's another example of that. It's a really good film overall. Strong cast overall. You know, John Malkovich is in here, Jim Broadbent, Ethan Suplee, Joel David Moore, Nick Swardson, Angelica Houston, Adam Scott. A lot of talent involved in this movie. It's a really good movie. I thought it was a ton of fun overall. I think it's a very bizarre film overall, but that's kind of the charm of it as well. But what do you expect from Terry Zwigoff overall? Who would have thought that Bad Santa would be his most mainstream yet simplistic movie he'd ever make in general? But this is a really good movie. I really liked it a lot. Art School Confidential.
You feel it? Something's off.
You stay here and you die!
You think you can get us off this boat?
I can.
Poseidon in theaters everywhere this summer.
So the plot really does kind of just go through the same storyline as the other movies have, and the book this is based off of course. On New Year's Eve, the luxury ocean liner Poseidon capsizes after being swamped by a rogue wave. The survivors are left to fight for their lives as they attempt to escape the sinking ship. And you see in that trailer there a pretty stacked cast overall: Kurt Russell, Richard Dreyfuss, Josh Lucas, Andre Braugher, Emmy Rossum, Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas is also in here, Jacinda Barrett. There is a lot of really notable names in here, and unfortunately the movie was not the big hit that I think the studio really wanted. In fact, it actually flopped pretty badly. And I say unfortunately because I didn't think the movie was all that bad. In fact, there's a lot of times in the film where there was a lot that I really did appreciate about it. The visual spectrum of the whole movie is incredible. Like the ship getting attacked by the wave. It's actually really well done, and the visuals really are impressive to look at. But as I've always said, visuals don't make the movie. You gotta have good characters, you gotta have a good storyline, and unfortunately, the rest of the movie isn't that compelling whatsoever because the characters aren't really all that memorable in general. They're just kind of just stock generic characters, you know. You got the characters that we've seen so many times in other disaster movies like this, and unfortunately, there's no real good writing here to really give these characters a boost overall in terms of like give us a reason why we should be putting them on to get out of here. And there's just nothing there, unfortunately. It's a shame because there is a lot to admire about the film from the technical level, and you know it takes what was a pretty good 1970s movie, which was nominated for several Oscars too, by the way. This was back when the Academy Awards actually cared about all the movies that came out and didn't just shove the blockbusters aside for the smaller movies. No, this was back when they gave a shit about movies like the original Poseidon Adventure, which would have never gotten nominated if it was made today for Best Picture. Not by any means necessary. It was actually nominated for several big awards back then, but that movie worked because there were characters in there that you did get invested in. There was a lot of ambition and a lot of storyline that the audience got invested into. And unfortunately, the ambition is there, just everything else really isn't. It's a shame because there's a lot that I liked about it, but it's not enough for me to say that it's something that you should give it a watch overall. It's just not a very good movie overall, unfortunately. And it's a shame. It's a shame because there is so much there to admire about the film in general from the visual spectrum, but unfortunately, everything else from the casting that's really good, but unfortunately not given a lot to work with the characters in general and the storyline. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate mess of a film. And yeah, not much more I can say about this one, unfortunately. A major disappointment, but stuff I liked about it to say that it's on the cusp of saying it's watchable just for the special effects, but even then, it's not worth it for me to say you should definitely check it out, unfortunately. Yeah. So, mostly a mixed opinion on Poseidon. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and ladies and gentlemen, the movie that killed Lindsay Lohan's movie career. I know you think it's Georgia Rule, I know you think it's I Know Who Killed Me, but they contributed it, but no, this was the first movie that really broke the trend.
You're welcome.
6 o'clock?
Okay. I thought we were taking a jet.
This takes us to the jet.
This is definitely going in my diary.
Ashley is a good luck charm.
This isn't mine. This is it. Sarah Jessica Parker's. You are the luckiest person in the world. Taxi! Please tell her that I'm not lucky. We were voted prom queen at Franklin High. So, we went to Jefferson.
Jake is a bad luck magnet.
You're fired. You're firing me. You don't even pay me.
But on one special night,
I was just about to ask this lovely lady to dance.
one kiss switched their luck.
Who was that? I don't know. My shoe. My dress.
Taxi!
You saved my life. There's got to be a way I can repay you.
Is it just me or did I just get lucky? Ashley Albright, you're under arrest.
Is this about Sarah Jessica Parker's dress? That's my seat. You're fired. Is this your floor, too?
This is my new apartment?
Home theater, satellite TV.
Did anything unusual happen at that party?
I kissed a cute guy, but... So does that mean that he took my luck from me?
Yeah, this movie really was the one that killed it. I mean, you know, Herbie Fully Loaded was not a big hit the year before compared to Mean Girls and, you know, Freaky Friday from Lindsay beforehand, but that was still a hit that people went to go see. Nobody went to go see this, and this unfortunately started a downward trend for Lindsay Lohan that took a while for her to get back to. And she stars in this movie as Ashley Albright, who works in public relations and is the luckiest person in Manhattan, when Jake Harden, played by Chris Pine, is a janitor and would-be music producer who seems to have terrible luck until their good and bad luck is switched upon kissing each other at a masquerade ball, which changes both their lives and leads them to meet each other once again. A concept that could be funny if it was given the right material to work with to actually make us really appreciate the characters overall, but you really do not like any of these people in this movie whatsoever. Lindsay Lohan just comes off as a stock character. Like Chris Pine is trying his best to hold it together, but this was still back when they were still really struggling to find an identity for him as an actor in general. But he's still got a couple of years before we eventually know him as what he'll eventually become better known for as Captain Kirk in the Star Trek movies. But this is directed by Donald Petrie too, and Donald Petrie's made some movies I've liked. I liked Richie Rich. I liked Miss Congeniality. But then again, he's directed a lot of stuff I have not liked. He directed The Grumpy Old Man, which is one I really liked. But then he did stuff like Welcome to Mooseport and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and My Favorite Martian. And yeah, he's a mixed bag of a director overall. And unfortunately, the film itself, just that trailer alone, I had to cut it off because you could kind of tell what kind of a movie this is. This is a film that is just... It's just a blown up big screen pilot for a TV series. Like, this would be something that would be seen as a new ABC series to follow, you know, Modern Family or Abbott Elementary or even on CBS. You know, be part of that Monday lineup, probably after How I Met Your Mother, sandwiched between How I Met Your Mother and Everybody Loves Raymond, or at this point 2.5 Men. But yeah, it's just not a good movie. You don't like the characters whatsoever. You don't like the storyline. They're just stock characters. Their relationship isn't that believable. The chemistry just isn't working. And it's just not funny. It's just not an enjoyable movie by any means necessary. It's a lazy film. A much better talent, I think, could have been put to just a better use and make it a fun, high energy comedy, an ambitious comedy, if you will, like a more bigger budgeted comedy in general. But unfortunately, it's just not there in this movie, and it's just not a good film whatsoever. So yeah, a hard skip on Just My Luck. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie. Let's get to some good movies finally. Here's one that I saw that did not think I was going to like, but that came out of nowhere. Gold, The Dream Begins.
You think you deserve it?
I know I do.
From Touchstone Pictures,
It is now quite a day for this young man.
one man's extraordinary journey
That's my son.
That's my boy, Santiago.
is about to begin. Kuno Becker, Gold, The Dream Begins.
Who would have guessed this would turn into a franchise? They actually have made some sequels to this movie. There's actually a trilogy out there. And in this movie, you have Santiago Muniz, played by Kuno Becker, who's an amateur soccer player who earns an unlikely chance to play professional football, or soccer, if you want to put it that way. And it's one that really came out of nowhere. It's a film that I remember hearing about. I remember seeing it in stores, and I just never really took the time to watch it. It did eventually become later on Disney Plus and then Hulu, and I figured, there's nothing else on there. I might as well go check it out. And I was kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed it. This is directed by Danny Cannon, who, the last time I think he directed a film in theaters, it was Judge Dredd, if I'm not mistaken. I could be very wrong on that, but then again, I am wrong. But the last thing he directed, though, was not any better. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. This is actually the last film he ever directed. I think he went back mostly to television. But I think what makes it work is the script by Dick Clement and Ian LaFernaise, who have written some stuff I've actually really liked in the past. They wrote Flushed Away, which is a really good DreamWorks film, Armand film we'll get to later on in the year. Across the Universe, which is a criminally underrated musical with the songs of the Beatles. He also wrote Never Say Never Again with James Bond involved. This with Sean Connery as James Bond. Vice Versa, one of the few body switch comedies with Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold that actually worked back in the 1980s. This is they put their hands on this. It's a really, really enjoyable film. It's an encouraging story where you want to follow this guy all the way to, becoming the soccer star that he will eventually become in this film. And it's a very intriguing and very entertaining film that I think works because you like the main characters a lot. You like their motivations. You want to see where they're going to go in life. And it's a very good, inspiring story overall. Even if you're not the biggest soccer person, like I'm not a soccer person in general, but I did get easily invested in the storyline pretty quickly. And I will say that, yeah, it's indeed definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend checking it out. Goal the Dream Begins. Haven't seen the sequel yet, but I'll probably get to it at some point. But the first one I really like, Goal the Dream Begins. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, probably the most underrated film I saw that came out on this weekend, Keeping Up with the Steins.
Gifts in life
I just want to tell you that I think you're a great son who's on his way to becoming a great man.
are the ones that can't be bought.
Oh, very clever. He's saying, I'm so rich, I don't have to try to impress anyone.
Well, then why'd we spend $500,000?
Keeping Up with the Steins.
Today, you are a man. Today, you are a man.
This is a movie I actually really kind of enjoy. This is a commentary about how too many Jewish families see a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah not as a coming of age for their son or daughter, but rather as an excuse to throw outrageously lavish parties which end in drama. So, essentially, the bar mitzvah version of My Super Sweet 16. I mean, that's what literally every episode of My Super Sweet 16 was. Not celebrating the 16th birthday of your teenage daughter, but no, let's throw the most exuberant, loud, over-the-top party. And I think that's the idea of this particular film in general. And for that, I kind of have to admire it for that. This is a really good movie. It's got a really good cast. Gary Marshall is in this. His son directed this movie, Scott Marshall. Jeremy Piven, Jamie Gertz, Darius Ribeiro from Spy Kids, Larry Miller, Cheryl Hines, Daryl Hannah. A really, really top-tier cast. And a really overall entertaining film all around. I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. It has kind of the similar problems to Just My Luck. But unlike Just My Luck, which was written just like a sitcom, this is also written like a sitcom, except you do get invested in the storyline and the characters as well. And that's what I really took from this movie in general, how much I really appreciated this film. I thought it was very funny. I thought it was a sweet story. I thought it was a nicely put together film. It was a film that really did come out of nowhere. I just remember seeing it at Giant Eagle when the video store was still there, and I figured I'll rent it one night, and I actually found myself really enjoying it. I thought it was a very entertaining film, very underrated film. I highly recommend checking it out. Keeping Up with the Steins.
It is so powerful that men have died to protect it. And there are those who would kill to expose it. It is a message that has been hidden for centuries. Before our eyes. What if the world's greatest works of art held a secret that could change the course of mankind forever. Next summer, no matter what you have read, no matter what you believe, the journey has just begun.
I mean, that's one way to sell your movie. Have this teaser play in front of Revenge of the Sith where everybody's going to go see it. Oh, no joke, this trailer came out a year before the movie actually did. They put it up in front of Revenge of the Sith. It literally was 1 year to the day of this movie's release date, because this comes out on May 19th of this year. That trailer came out on the same day that Revenge of the Sith did in theaters, and it worked. The movie was a massive hit in general, but of course that also helps the fact that this is based off the best-selling book of the same name. And in this movie, you have Tom Hanks playing Robert Langdon, who's a professor of religious sciences from Harvard University, and is the prime suspect in the grisly and unusual murder of Louvre creator Jacques Sonari. And on the body, the police find a disconcerting cipher and start an investigation. Langdon escapes with the assistance of a police cryptologist played by Audrey Tautou, and they begin a quest for the legendary Holy Grail. Just because. Sir Leigh Teabing, a noted British Grail historian, tells them that the actual Holy Grail is actually encoded in Leonardo da Vinci's wall painting The Last Supper, and searching for the Grail is a secret cabal within Opus Dei, an actual prelature of the Holy See, which wished to keep the true Grail a secret to prevent the destruction of Christianity. This is a weird book indeed, and people bought into it. I remember seeing the books out there. I, of course, never read them, but yeah, they somehow turned that into this National Treasure Indiana Jones type of adventure, which was dealt with a lot of controversy at the time because, like the book itself, it was controversial because it was met with a lot of criticism by the Catholic Church because of the accusations that it is behind a 2,000-year-old cover-up concerning what the Holy Grail really is, and the concept that Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene were married, producing a daughter, as well as its treatments of the organizations of Priority of Zion and Opus Dei, and many members of those used them to try to boycott the film. And I do remember driving past the theater, and there were some boycotts. Not a lot, but there were some, which was very surprising when I saw that driving by on the way over to Walmart one day back in 2006. But yeah, this is a weird movie based off of a really weird book. Not just for the material itself, but the stars that they have involved in here. You mean Tom Hanks, you've got Ian McKellen. You have a cast that also includes Alfred Molina, Paul Bettany, Jean Reno, Audrey Tautou. This is written by Akiva Goldsman, who did A Time to Kill. And then you have Ron Howard directing this movie, which all these pieces really do not seem like a movie that should come to this. A movie that all this does not feel like a film that should come from all these people that are coming in here. And yeah, while the film was a massive hit, mostly because of the book's success, this film was not well received by critics. In fact, it was largely panned by critics, and yet it still made a ton of money. And Ron Howard said, I like making these movies. I'm going to keep making more of them, because he did he did 2 other sequels to this with Tom Hanks involved. So take that for what you will. But really, when I finally got around to seeing this, I never got it. I never got the whole appeal of this movie in general. This is like, I didn't like National Treasure, but at least National Treasure was made for kids in mind. This is supposed to be made for adults, and the extreme levels that they go to make this movie try to be entertaining and be like a summer blockbuster just goes completely out the door really, really quickly. And it's just once you get to the point where you're supposed to find out the big secrets overall, it's just like, really, is this what we're doing is this what we're doing at this point? Because this thing just gets really, really boring really fast. And Tom Hanks, man, he usually was a reliable actor here, making only very few mistakes in terms of movies he makes, but this is definitely one of those ones where it's like, yeah, you're not really putting your all into this, man. You just took this because of the paycheck, and I expect a lot more from Tom Hanks in particular. I expect a lot more from him as an actor, not to take a role like this, but if there was something appealing to it, then maybe that I would say it's probably entertaining, but I never got the appeal of these movies. This was a film that was just kind of like, yeah, I can't buy into this. Like, it's trying to take itself way too seriously when the source material when it's material that it's working with here sounds really, really stupid in the long run. And sure enough, yeah, this is not a very good movie overall. This is not an enjoyable film whatsoever. It's a pretty lame film, and in fact, most of these movies in here are pretty lackluster overall, and they just feel unnecessary to turn them into these action blockbuster films when they're nothing like that whatsoever. It's an overall boring film. I really didn't like it a lot, so yeah. Hard skip on the Da Vinci Code. Now, if you want a good movie that came out this weekend, that's our next movie, the animated feature from DreamWorks, and that is Over the Hedge.
The Verminator. He will hunt you down. He will take away your cookie.
I like a cookie.
But on May 19th, he will meet his match.
What the?
DreamWorks Over the Hedge. Rated PG.
Whoa, you stink.
Starts May 19th.
So Over the Hedge, of course, is the latest film from DreamWorks Animation. This is based off of a comic strip of the same name, which, from what I've been told, radically takes a lot of liberties with the comic strip material. In fact, from what I remember, a lot of the material from the comic strips is not in here. But then again, that really, if the movie is good enough, you can let it slide. And this is definitely a really good film. And you have a story that's set in Indiana where you center around a raccoon named RJ, voiced by Bruce Willis, who's forced to deliver food to a bear named Vincent, played by Nick Nolte, who, surprisingly enough, is actually based off of Tom Cruise's villain character Vincent from the movie Collateral. I'm not even kidding about this. You can read this up online and find out for yourself, but that is the actual reason why he's named Vincent in this. But, after accidentally destroying a stockpile of food, whereupon he manipulates a family of woodland animals led by Gary Shandling, who have recently awakened from hibernation, into helping him steal food in order to speed up the process. These animals have no idea that they built this entire suburb in their area where they used to have all their food and all that, and the rest of the movie is just watching these characters trying to get as much food from the humans as they can, and the movie just really is incredibly well done. It's extremely funny, a top-tier voice cast, not just including Willis and Shanley, but Steve Carell, William Shatner, Wanda Sykes, Avril Lavigne, Nick Nolte, Allison Janney, Thomas Hayden Church, just a ton of great talents involved in here. And they do carry a lot of the load of the film. This is a really, really funny movie with a lot of great animation, a lot of chaotic fun animation that you expect from DreamWorks Animation. And this is just a really, really solid, enjoyable, entertaining film all the way through. It's a very funny, beautifully animated film. Just a ton of things about it I really like a lot. And yeah, it's a wonderful film, absolutely hilarious, really good, very underrated, honestly, too, because it was a hit when it came out, but it wasn't as big as something like Shrek or Madagascar was, and has been kind of largely forgotten ever since DreamWorks made a lot of other movies since this time. But it's definitely one you might want to give another shot at, because it is a really, really funny movie. It's a really well-made film. Can't recommend it enough. Over the Edge. So let's go ahead and take a look at our last movie that we have here, and that is See No Evil.
It lives in the walls. Today,
What is going on?
it's here to do God's work.
This is not what God wants!
See no evil. Rated R. Theaters at
The first official major release from the WWE as a film company, and you have Kane, of course, starring in it. Of course, Kane is a professional wrestler in the WWE. And when investigating a call in an abandoned house, Officer Frank Williams and a rookie find a woman brutally blinded, but they are attacked by a huge psychopath with an axe. The rookie is killed, and Frank shoots the criminal in the head, but he has a severed arm. 4 years later, the mutilated Frank is relocated, working as a guard in the county detention center. Frank goes with some delinquents to the Blackwell Hotel, an abandoned place since a fire burnt the last 2 floors, with the purpose of cleaning the location, preparing it to work for a shelter for the homeless. In return, the criminals will have sentences reduced. During the night, one inmate is captured by the deranged serial killer, Jacob Goodnight, collecting the eyes of his victims. So, yeah, this is very much a body mutilation type of film, and not a very good one overall. It's just about as standard of a slasher movie as you can get, not even a good slasher movie in general. And this just feels like a film that the WWE probably is proud of, because, like most of their stuff, it's pretty fake. And unlike some of their stuff that is entertaining, This really is not, and you have a movie that just really is kind of feels empty overall. It's not an engaging film. It's not an entertaining film. The kills aren't that interesting. You just want to see these characters that you see here are nothing that impressive whatsoever. They're stock characters in horror movies. The bad guy's not even not memorable of a villain anyway, and it's just not a very good movie. It's just a really bland film. Nothing exciting, nothing engaging, nothing interesting about it. I didn't like it, so yeah, a hard pass on See No Evil.
On principle, I can't negotiate with these people.
Well, then you know what needs to be done. We're going to protect our citizens.
Make no mistake, my brothers. The humans will draw first blood. And the air is still, and the night has fallen. There's only one question you must answer. Who will you stand with? A major pharmaceutical company has developed a way to suppress the mutant X gene permanently. They're calling it a cure.
There's nothing to cure. Nothing's wrong with any of us for that matter.
You of all people know how fast the weather can change. Did you find what you were looking for?
The source of the cure is a mutant. More powerful than you.
Jeez, something woke her, but she has to be controlled.
You know, sometimes when you cage the beast, I can't do this. The beast gets angry.
You have no idea what is upon us now. Fury that this world has never witnessed.
Magneto's got an army out there. You go to war, you might not come home. She might not come home. You ready for that? We're not kids anymore. Hey, I'm not your father. If you want to go, be sure it's what you want.
It's time we make our choice. If you're with us, then be with us.
They wish to cure us. And I say we are the cure.
Look at me, G. We can help you. We can fix it. We can make it like it was. Stay with me.
That's funny. That's what most people said after they saw this movie. Kill me. I mean, I was one of those people too, because it was just like, I finished watching the movie and I could have literally looked at the screen and looked at Brett Ratner in his face and just like, kill me, please. How could you do this? Because, let's have a little history lesson here, shall we? After two very successful movies, the X-Men franchise seemed to be heading in the right direction, and then this movie came along. The trouble began when Bryan Singer didn't come back to helm it because he was working on the Superman franchise, Superman Returns. More on that in a month or so. Which, I will tell you this right now, it's still my favorite. It's still my favorite of the modern Superman movies. Yeah, Henry Cavill, I'm sorry, man. Like, I tried to give you a chance, but I'm sorry. That Superman Returns is still better than Man of Steel. But that's for another time. But, you know, he had not even defined the storyline for the third film in general, so they were basically starting from scratch. Matthew Vaughn, who was initially hired to become the new director, and he left for personal and professional issues. And, of course, he went on to become a director of several comic book movies with the Kick-Ass films. And then he was replaced by Brett Ratner. It was a big hit financially, but as far as the film goes, yeah, this is not a very good film. And consider this the first of 3 failed attempts to try to retell the Dark Phoenix saga, because they've had 3 movies to try to make the Dark Phoenix saga work. They had this movie, they had X-Men Apocalypse, and then they had Dark Phoenix. And they failed on all 3 occasions. How they did that was amazing, but apparently this was a story that was just way too hard to get right. And this is, of course, based off the Dark Phoenix saga, and also Gifted, which was co-written by Joss Whedon. And it has a plot that revolves around a mutant cure that causes severe repercussions among mutants and humans, and on the mysterious resurrection of Jean Grey, who died in the last movie, played by Famke Janssen. When Bryan Singer directed the first 2 X-Men movies, you could tell he understood the material, was able to make a good first movie and a great sequel out of that story. When Brett Ratner took over, you could tell that he never understood the material and made a film that was very mediocre and was just made to make a quick buck. It's not that the movie is terrible, but goddamn, there's so many things wrong with this movie that make it so unwatchable. Let's start with those. First off, the movie doesn't take advantage of the comic book stories that they are adapting. It's like they only read little bits and pieces of both stories and just went with the stuff they read instead of reading the whole thing, which you can't really do that at all because you get a movie that is so clustered and such a mess like this movie is. Second, way too many characters die in this movie and are left behind for no reason whatsoever. I swear to God, there were so many characters being killed off for no reason, and you need a purpose for all these characters to die. You can't just go ahead and start killing off characters for the sake of killing off characters. And you don't just kill them off because of, dramatic effects. There's a scene where Mystique is shot with this cure gun, and she turns back into a normal human, and Magneto's just like, oh, sucks to be you, and that's halfway through the movie, never mentioned again. Like, the third act is where you're supposed to have this big, epic finale of everything that's been building up in the past 3 films, and it just goes on for way too long. I swear to God. This is one of the longest third acts I have ever seen for a movie in my life. It's almost an hour long, and by the time we get to the middle of it, it just gets so boring because nothing different is happening at any point. Like, the moment when I realized that this movie was completely over and done with, there's a scene where Wolverine's trying to stop Jean Grey, and every time he gets closer, his clothes start to rip apart and showing off Wolverine's abs for sex appeal, and at that point, I was just like, okay, I'm done with this movie, Everything I like about this movie quickly went away because of that cheap ploy to show Hugh Jackman's abs. Here's an example. We just had Deadpool and the Wolverine come out earlier this year. That movie did the same thing by having a scene where Hugh Jackman's abs are being shown. That was done for comedic effect, and it plays into the part of the storyline. There was a purpose for that to happen, because the power between Deadpool and the Wolverine was so strong that, yeah, of course Hugh Jackman had to show off his abs in that. This is just exploitive. Like, this is just an exploitive, cheap ploy for sex appeal. And you can tell that this was Brett Ratner's work, because somebody like Bryan Singer would probably never do this. I would like to think he wouldn't do that. And, yeah, it just doesn't work at all. And, of course, gotta have your terrible lines. And no line in the history of the X-Men series. If you thought let me just say this: if you thought the line from Halle Berry in the first movie about what happens to her toe when it's struck by lightning, the same thing that happens to everything else, you know how that was bad? Behold the line that is surprisingly even worse.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
There are so many things wrong with that one line of dialogue that would take me far too long to explain. First of all, it's a terrible line. Secondly, the acting on Vinnie Jones when he says it is shit. Third, they built this scene up where it just felt like Vinnie Jones was just there to say that line. Like, he wasn't there to be Juggernaut or anything. He just took that part because he knew that line was in there. He knew he had the way to say it. And it's just an unnecessary moment that was yet another excuse to be edgy and cool, and it just fails miserably. And it's just such a terrible, terrible scene in general. Like, at least with the line from X-Men, you can understand where they were coming from. The scene there made sense for Halle Berry to say, what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning, because there's literally the toad right there, and it's supposed to be the toad getting taken out. There was a reason for that to exist. This is inexcusable. This is just a lazy, cheap attempt to be edgy and cool and create a viral moment, because this was back in the late 2000s and everyone was trying to be like, hey, we have this thing called YouTube now. Let's create a viral moment. And yeah, it just hurts me when I think about these things that happen in the movie that makes me hate this movie so much. So with all that against the movie, was there anything good about the film? And I will say, yeah. I give the cast its credit for working with a terrible script. I thought everybody did a pretty good job. Hugh Jackman's still going to be badass as Wolverine. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are great as Magneto, Professor X and Magneto. James Marsden's going to be good as Cyclops, even though he's cut from the movie pretty quickly. The overall best character in the movie, and you see it in that trailer, is Kelsey Grammer as the Beast. And I mean, they it was such perfect casting right there. He captures the character of the Beast from the comics as well as from the cartoon. They did an incredible job with the makeup with that character, and he just captures who that character is and plays it to a T. But then again, it's Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer can usually never do any wrong when it comes to his acting. But, like, the action scenes can be really good, too. The first half of the third act is pretty cool. The bridge, going right to the island where the person is they're looking for, that's a cool scene. But again, it's not until the middle where it goes on way too long. Plus, that stupid cheap ploy for sex appeal is where it goes down badly. X-Men The Last Stand had a potential to end the series on a high note, but Brett Ratner didn't bother to do the research, and it made for a lazy summer popcorn movie with stupid dialogue, unnecessary death scenes, piss-poor attempts at sex appeal, and deciding to do no justice to the X-Men films, and just made a bad threequel just to get a paycheck. And unfortunately, it began a streak of less than spectacular threequels for Marvel, which kind of leads into the next threequel we'll take a look at that starts off next summer. But all in good time on that one. But in the meantime, though, X-Men The Last Stand, it's not a bad movie, but just a very, very disappointing ending to what was supposed to be the final chapter of a pretty strong trilogy of movies, and then just kind of falls apart after with this film. And it's a shame, because the pieces were there for something good, and it just didn't work in the end. So yeah, that's a hard skip on X-Men The Last Stand. Not even a hard skip, just don't expect anything on the same level as the first two movies. But yeah, it's just a mixed bag of a movie. I shouldn't even have said a hard skip. It's just not a very good film in the long run. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at that other movie, the more notable movie that came out this weekend, and it's Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth.
10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. The hottest of all was 2005. Scientific consensus is that we are causing global warming. I am Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States of America.
It's funny because he was the president of the United States for about an hour, and then CNN said, oh, we've made a mistake, and then it led to a month of waiting to find out who was going to be the next president, and it was George Bush. That's a whole other thing altogether. But how appropriate that I get to talk about this movie just 2 days before we have a real election going on, but I digress. This is An Inconvenient Truth, which is the former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore's campaign to educate people about global warming. And the idea is to document Gore's efforts coming from producer Laurie David, who saw his presentation of the town hall meeting on global warming, which coincides with the opening of another movie that came out 2 years prior to this, The Day After Tomorrow. And she was inspired by a slideshow that they met with Davis Guggenheim to adapt the presentation into a film. And thus we have this documentary that became known for raising public awareness on global warming and re-energizing the environmental movement. And the film did very well. It was a massive hit when it came out. It was an unexpected hit. And like I said, it did go on to win an Oscar for Best Documentary. And, Gore himself has actually had time since then to make fun of nobody really gives Al Gore a lot more respect for having a really good sense of humor because, not only because of the way he lost the election, but the fact that he goes on shows like The Simpsons and Futurama, and especially Futurama, and is more than willing to completely make fun of himself in general. Like I love how in the Futurama movie, the first one they did, Bender's Big Score, he shows up a couple times, and there's a part where, he's a taxi cab driver, and Bender from the future has to go back to the past, where Bender has to go and kill Fry, who somehow made it back to the past. And he has this great line in that movie where he's just where Bender offers him $100, and he's like a taxi driver. And then at the end of the scene, Al Gore's just like, "Damn, that $100 could have bought me 1 gallon of gas," which was funny in 2007, and in 2023, it's not so much, or 2024. But then again, if you actually do the research, gas prices are actually down in most places, but it just depends on which time of the year it is when you really think about it. But also in that movie, there's also a great bit where he's actually fighting in the climax, and Al Gore's just like, finally, I could save the Earth without stupid slideshows. And just like I love that he has a sense of humor. I like the fact that he is willing to make fun of himself at numerous occasions. Then again, it also could help that his daughter actually supposedly works on the show, and I think that also plays a large part in it too. But like I said, man, more power to Al Gore, man, for being able to make fun of himself when he needs to. But you watch this movie, and it's just like the guy can make these conversations very, very interesting and make these important issues very, very very much something that you need to pay attention to. And it had helped too. I think a lot of people really saw these movies and just basically had to look at see what was really going on out there, and it did help in the long run, even though we still are dealing with very much with global warming even today. Like, it's a movie that it feels like it could be made for a specific audience in general. It could be really seen as something that's just very, very, very much a boring thing. But somebody like Al Gore, as charismatic he could be, like, he can make this kind of stuff seem very interesting and very kind of entertaining to watch. And for that, you got to give him a lot of credit for it. I know it's not going to appeal to a lot of people in general. I mean, I watched it and I was thinking, okay, more than likely I'm not going to get a whole lot out of it. But I was kind of surprised at how much I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an appealing documentary. It is kind of an enjoyable watch in general. I think it's one that's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. If you go into it trying to figure out if you should really take global warming seriously, I think it does give you an opportunity to look at this and say that maybe this is something that I should really keep an eye out for. And, like, it's a very intriguing little documentary. I got to give it credit for that. So that's an inconvenient truth for you.